So, and Brian asked me to talk about what our resources are and sort of options moving forward. So I have some opinions that are hopefully backed by some amount of fact, but I think a lot of people have their own ideas, you know. I mean, I was at Kingspan once, and they make these buildings with huge buildings with great big roofs, and they wanted to investigate capturing the energy in the rainwater that comes down the downspouts. Right, you know, so there's a lot of interesting ideas out there, some of which are practical. So first I'll set a context. I'll talk about energy trends, but very briefly, because that was kind of mentioned in the last presentation. Look at the options I think we have based on the resource studies that have been done, and sort of begin to plot a way forward. Then the speaker after me, I think, is going to propose a scenario. So, we're in a tight spot, right? And just to put it bluntly, as the Danes do, fellow engineers there say, the trouble is that no realistic technological, economic, and political strategies for the warding off of the impacts of a decline in conventional oil supply are in sight. And that is the hard fact. We're all feeling very positive, and we can kind of, you know, there's a sort of a spirit flowing through that we have to make this change. But when you start looking at the reality of what will be required to move away from fossil fuels, this is the kind of conclusion you draw. So it's no small task that we're facing into. But to cheer it up a little bit, here's the economy sort of languishing on a bed. Maybe after the last oil price hikes, and then it gets up and starts feeling pretty good. Gets out to face the world and gets plowed over by oil prices rising again. So anyway, that might be one way of looking at how things are going to be. Matter of fact, I'll talk about a computer model we did later, which actually manifested that characteristic when modeling the Irish economy. So, of course, the two major challenges we face are global warming and energy supply security. I think energy supply security is underrated. People talk about it and say, yes, well, we do loss of load probability studies for the grid, and we are not going to be without electricity for more than a few hours a year, according to the statistics. But when we, when the gas is shut off from Siberia or the oil doesn't appear from the Middle East, I think that's when the rubber's going to hit the road in terms of the reality of supply security. And both these events are very finite probabilities. You know, they're not big, but they're not zero. And when that happens, suddenly people understand what supply security is, and it'll be of more interest than it is at the moment. So we just learned Ireland's a major per capita CO2 emitter. Fossil fuel prices are obviously volatile and will be rising for the foreseeable future, just supply and demand, threatening the economy in various ways. So this is just sort of we've seen similar graph here with CO2 tends to follow. So over the last little while, we've vastly increased our use of oil, which is this middle bit here. We've increased the use of gas quite a bit because of the dash for gas, the electricity generation, and to some extent heating homes is now done with gas. So energy use has gone up a lot. And I just can't remember the quality of life being that much poorer in 1990, you know. But anyway, the Celtic Tiger has had this effect. And so here's more or less the same idea, except imports. Imported energy has gone way up, and so that's sort of a supply security issue. I remember when I was working for ESB, people would say, yeah, Ireland, it's too bad, but we don't have any natural resources, you know. I'm coming from this wind energy background, and my hair is pasted back, you know, and no resources, no, we don't. We're moving to gas in electricity generation. Coal has stayed pretty constant. Peat has stayed pretty constant. And now we have this slight increase in renewables going on up to 2007. Here, if we sort of expand that bit there, we see how renewables, the proportion of hydro has gone down just because electricity is use has increased, over the years. So even though we're producing the same amount of hydro, it's proportionally less. And wind is taking off. And so we're sort of at about 10% wind at the moment, 2% hydro. And we're aiming for 40% renewables, which effectively means 40% wind by 2020. And we're actually on track with one major caveat. Good friend of mine, Dave O'Connor, just retired from ESB, a brilliant guy. Just talking about, we have a problem with our plant mix. If you have a lot of renewables on the grid, you need kind of fast-acting, fast on its feet, a fossil fuel plant to respond to that. And our electricity market has not incentivized such a plant. It has done the opposite. It has incentivized what's called baseload plant that's made to just go up to maximum output and sit there and generate there all day, right? So this is our baseload plant that we've gotten in over the years. There's Money Point coming in, the coal-fired stations. I put it in black for David. And so now, that is enough baseload generators to satisfy the minimum system demand. So at night, these power stations could be operating at 100% and not have to back off or shut down. This is what our electricity market has done over the last number of years in terms of more baseload plants. Now remember, this is enough baseload plant for Ireland. This is the more recent generators that have gone in on the system. This is all baseload plants. Those are some of the key power stations, combined cycle gas mostly. And so now we have this and more. And so we effectively have a dysfunctional system in terms of plant mix. And as we look towards putting more and more renewables on the grid, we don't have the flexible plant on the grid to sort of deal with the renewables. What's the answer? And the answer is you operate the Olive's plant at part load, where it becomes quite inefficient. And the goal of the electricity or the energy regulator is to provide minimum cost electricity to Ireland. This ain't going to do it, right? So now there is more flexible plants coming in and beginning to be incentivized. So it's an uphill battle. That's all I'm saying. So that's one of the facts of the Irish electricity system, Irish energy system. Okay, energy options. What can we do? Well, we're very lucky. I'll get to that. So we can look to coal moving forward. We can. It is an option. And there's large coal reserves worldwide, not in Ireland. And this is a good from a supply security point of view. There's a number of places where you can get coal. And I actually sympathize with, or I agree with the ESB plan to keep Money Point Power Station, which is coal-fired, and keep it coal-fired and aim for carbon capture and storage there, because it's important to have a diversified fuel supply. I think we saw before that a huge percentage of our energy comes from gas. That's just a disaster, from a supply security point of view. And it's just going to take one event for us for that penny to drop, So coal, I think, is going to be used moving forward to some extent, but it's greenhouse gas intensive, large-scale sequestering of CO2. This is that CCS that Godfrey was talking about. It's still in the concept stage, but it's a problem the world has to solve, and I think we will. So the conclusion is coal can only aid the transition toward energy sustainability or a low-carbon situation in Ireland, along with oil and gas.